What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for The Witch and the Beast. This is episode 4, and with me as always, I have Blue Spade.
Mhm. So I guess the next story arc is obviously going to be focused on necromancy. Uh, and also another thing is that Asaf and Guido aren't going to be the main characters going into this story arc. Instead, we were
No,
introduced to these two new characters uh, named Panora and her servant Johan.
yeah, I think it's Fenora and Johan, but
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, I haven't figured out how to pronounce their names correctly. Um,
mm,
but we do get to see Asaf and Gito, um, just barely in the first few minutes of the episode. Uh, what happened is like they suddenly like intercept and stop an an undead person going on a rampage, and they're told that, and of course we do get some some information about like how necromancy works. It's somewhat of a legal process of, if people want to bring certain people back from the dead, like you would, like, for example, you would need to get permission from uh you know the person himself, whether or not they want to be brought back to life, or get permission from the family members of that said person, to be brought back to life if they permit it. um, and of course, we're introduced to the villain of this arc, who's apparently just resurrecting certain people willy nilly.
it seems like he's specifically targeting redheaded women and bringing them back to life through necromancy.
I mean, not. I don't know about like just redheaded women. I mean, Fenora is
Well,
also. I don't know, but I mean,
no, because we find out later that is the case. That like
mm,
if you remember, later on in the episode, it's revealed that when they go to his hideout, he mostly has. I think it's just redheaded women that he brings back. Um,
okay,
but yeah, so yeah, we find that out later. But the confusion might have come in because there is a scene where there are a bunch of undead that swarm them, but it's just because of I think the lantern that Fenora uses that attracts them.
yeah, and they're also accompanied by two police officers, and of course, one of them has a history um, one of one of the people that he lost recently, and of course,
Yeah, it was his fiance.
yeah, it was his fiance who recently ended up passing away. Um, Fenora, of course, like you said, she brings out this lantern, which draws out all of these, like, I guess, undead people coming out of nowhere and attacking them, and of course, Johan ends up killing all of them by himself, with some, I guess, minor assistance from one of the officers. Um, so, I think what else happened? I think so.
Well, we do get some more explanation as to how the necromancy works in this world.
Mhm,
Basically, that there are three different forms of which the necromancer can control the undead.
mhm.
One of which is manual. This one is manual, which is basically they have no the necromancer has full control over the undead person. The other one is semi-auto, which means, of course, that they have some control, but also the undead person has somewhat of their will retained. And then there's just auto, where the undead person is just completely at their is just not being controlled at all by the necromancer.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, and I think they also mentioned, like, I guess maybe in some countries in that world the necromancy might be banned, but so I guess it's only allowed in certain countries or something.
Yeah. So eventually they traced the footsteps of the undead that they ended up luring to the church or the building they were at, and takes them to the mansion in the forest where they're confronted by even more undead, and of course they come across, I guess, another undead person who's being controlled by one of the necromancers, and they also find that one of the officer's dead fiance who was just recently being brought back to life.
Yeah, and the necromancer himself speaks through the voice of the undead fiance, which I honestly wasn't expecting the way they handled it in the anime, because it literally is the voice of the necromancer speaking through the woman and not just like her own voice speaking, which is kind of how I thought it would be, how I thought it would play out after reading this part in the manga. But it's a little bit weird, like having just watching it, and and apparently it's just his own voice somehow speaking through her. I thought that was a little bit strange. Like I was like not expecting that at all. Um, but yeah, so basically what happens is the necromancer basically tries to make a deal with Fenora by well, he has his servant like slit Johan's throat and take him away, and he basically says like if you want to ensure Johan's safety or something, that you'll basically like do what I tell you. Uh, so they end up just following the undead the undead fiance into the mansion,
Mhm.
uh, and that's kind of where we end things off. I did like this. I mean, I like the story arc in the manga because, yeah, like you said, we don't actually focus on Ashaf and Gudo in this one. It's Fenora and Johan, which I feel like are two interesting characters themselves, and we don't even really get to spend too much time with them. But I feel like we already are kind of familiar with their whole like dynamic. So I kind of find that interesting. It's a little bit it's a little bit different than the dynamic, I guess, between Gudo and Ashaf, and their relationship, of course, is not really the same, but they also kind of have this sort of, I guess, master servant relationship, but it's of course it's different from Gudo and Ashaf.
Yeah. And of course it fits with the, with the whole thing about, bringing in characters that, that fit with their expertise in certain situations. I mean, for Ashraf and
Mhm.
Guido, I mean Guido in particular, we know that she only wants to go after witches in particular. So like if Ashraf and Guido were to take this job, I don't think it would like, fit that criteria very well.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, as we know, Fenora specializes is pretty much just specializes in necromancy. Um, but I mean, without really knowing too much about Johan, I think we could also assume that he's he's probably not dead because I don't think they've really revealed some things about Johan yet. But him having his throat slit and all that, I mean, it seems like it doesn't seem like he's probably. I'm going to go ahead and assume. I mean, of course I know, but I'm assuming he's probably not dead. Uh, but yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. I thought this is. I will say this is a. I like this arc a little bit better than the previous one. I thought that like I said last week, I thought the previous story arc was a little bit too rushed, and it felt like it needed a little bit more time because it felt like they came to the conclusion like a little bit too quickly, and the impact of the death of those the two sons, or well their supposed deaths, it wasn't really you didn't really care much about it. Like here, it's just a little bit more interesting what's going on, in my opinion, in the necromancer arc. Um, and mostly because of like the detective's personal ties to it, and also just the characters of Fenora and Johan.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, overall, I did enjoy this episode. I did like, how they introduced the two new characters. That that fits with, with their expertise and how they can deal with this rather than having to, deal with Ashraf and Guido having to, go into mission to mission looking for a witch every single time. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'm kind of glad that we're dealing with like, other forms of with with the supernatural elements rather than just going after witches every single time.
Yeah, it does feel like they're kind of like slowly sort of building onto the world, and they aren't really revealing everything right at the beginning of the series. There's kind of just like slowly, like revealing certain things about the world, like necromancy,
Mhm.
and also some other characters, I guess, within the organization.
Yeah. But yeah,
Uh,
so obviously, well, like next week is well, it's gonna be the conclusion of the story arc,
yeah,
based on the title. But yeah, I mean, we'll get to see what happens after this.
yeah. I will say that like after this, I think it's after this, but we are going to eventually get into an arc that's a little bit longer, and there's a little bit more going on in that arc, and I am a little bit concerned, like I've said before, because I think the next arc is where there's going to be a lot more action scenes happening, and it's going to be interesting to see how Yokohama Animation Lab handles that.
Mhm.
So I guess we'll see, but yeah, I don't really have much else to say though about this episode. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I think this is a big improvement over the last two episodes that we've gotten. And of course, it gives us a fresh look into the world, rather than have like the whole rather than have like Ashraf and Guido. Well, Guido in particular complaining about like not tackling a witch case every single week.
Yeah, I mean, it was also refreshing just seeing just characters with, like I said before, like kind of a different relationship dynamic than Ash, Chef, and Yudo.
Mhm.
But yeah, guys. So that all being said, until next week, we will see you all next time.